now it's our third panel, which is also the final panel of our conference, From Taiwan to Hollywood, Voices in the Global Cultural Industry. And in this panel, we invited 3 speakers from different areas of cultural industries to discuss how Taiwan is viewed and understood and imagined, and how Taiwan's story is told across different media platforms. So I want to first introduce our panelists first, and then each of them will share their experiences and have a brief presentation, and later on we are going to have an overall discussion and Q&A with all of the audiences. First, we are honored to welcome Brian Hu, Associate Professor and Area Head of Television, Film, and New Media at the School of Theatre, Television, and Film at San Diego State University. And Professor Hu is a scholar and curator whose work mostly focus on Asia and Asia American media and film culture. So today he will share how he view the culture, and particularly how this culture get cultivated across different media platforms, particularly related to Taiwan themes. And the second is our director of The Left Hand Girl, Zhou Shiqing, Shiqing Zhou. So traditionally, I don't know whether you have this taboo in your culture, but traditionally the left hand is usually viewed as like a devil's hand. So when you are using your left hands to do things, your parents will tell you, oh, don't use your left hand. Okay. Now, director Zhou take this taboo and transform this taboo into a very meaningful movie called The Left Hand Girl, starting from her own personal experiences. And she's representing Taiwan to run for the International Film of Oscar Awards this year, right?
Last year.
Last year. Yeah, she is going to share her experiences with us. And finally, we are very delighted to welcome Jen Wu, a director and an executive producer. If you have ever made film before, you know the producer is the most important role, because they are going to fundraising, they are going to collect money, they are going to kind of like manage a lot of underlying work and the teamwork like behind the film and the movie. And Jen not only make film, but a lot of animation is also very, very beautiful, and she is going to share some of us. So Jen is a producer of Mulan and Captain America, Star Trek Beyond, and her experience offers a very important perspective for us to understand how the culture of Taiwan get represented in the different images of and particularly the animation part. So let's welcome our first panelist, Brian.
All right, thank you. First of all, just what an honor it is to be invited here and to be on a panel with Shiqing and Jane. I was looking at the title for this panel and thinking about this idea of soft power, which has been a theme that we've been kind of exploring all day. So one of my roles, in addition to being a scholar, is as a curator. And so I'm the artistic director of the San Diego Asian Film Festival. And amongst other things. And I'm particularly interested in Taiwanese cinema. And so as a curator, I don't really like to think about what I do as soft power. Like, I'd rather think about myself having a little more autonomy in thinking about ideas around what Taiwan is and how conversations we can have around it. And yet, of course, what I do is related to soft power and has to do with things I care about, which I'll get into, and then the institutions I work with, the partners I work with, especially from the Taiwanese government. So today, I just want to say a few words about like how I think about my role in helping to facilitate soft power, and using some case studies that I'll walk through. All right, so I'll start with a brief anecdote. On June 30th, 2007, at this time I'm working in LA as an entertainment journalist, as a film critic. And happened to be at the New York Asian Film Festival. I was walking down the street, and I get this phone call. I'm looking at it, and it's my contact at the Taipei Economic and Culture Office in LA, TECO. So if you're familiar with it. So it's sort of like the de facto embassy. I'm like, what is she calling me for? I pick it up, and she says, first of all, she says, did you know Edward Yang just passed away? I don't know if you know the director Edward Yang, Yang Datsang, one of the greatest filmmakers who's ever lived. And that was crushing enough for me. I mean, I do what I do because in the year 2000, I watched a film called Yi Yi, directed by Edward Yang, and I decided I'm not going to be an engineer anymore. So I was kind of crushed by that. And then she asked me, do you have his widow's telephone number? So this shocked me on a number of levels. One is, why do you not have her number? Why do you think I have her number? And the second, why do you, who work in the Economic and Culture Office, want her number? And I know from friends of mine who know Edward Yang, he wasn't really fans of that office. He probably wouldn't want them to have her number, nor was I able to give it. So anyways, I've been thinking about that moment and thinking about, like, again, why did they call me? And so I'm starting to think through this idea of soft power as less this sort of top-down national surveillance thing that's like they know all, right? And more that how does soft power work on the ground through interactions with me, through phone calls, through this interpersonal relationship. And when I was writing my book for my dissertation, I was really thinking about soft power as like the Taiwanese government wants to exert themselves with this image and they do it top down. But really, as I'm starting to work at this Asian Film Festival, I realized, no, it's about relationships. It's about who happens to be the TECO director at a certain time and the kind of relationships that we're building. All right, so I'm speaking about my work at the San Diego Asian Film Festival. So every year since 2012, we've been presenting what we call the Taiwan Film Showcase. And it has since grown to becoming the largest annual showcase of Taiwanese cinema in North America. And we're only able to do this with the help of the TECO office, and also now we work with what's called the Taiwan Academy in Los Angeles. And then we also work with the UC San Diego Taiwan Studies Center and the UC San Diego Tran Liu Endowed Chair in Taiwan Studies, which is Professor Ping-Hui Liao. And we take pride in showing fiction films, documentaries, short films. We do classic films from Taiwan, especially because there's so many great restorations coming out in recent years. And really, so it's a little bit about how the sausage is made, but like the Taiwan government pays for the rights to the films, so they pay the rights holders. UCA San Diego pays for the venues and to fly a filmmaker out. And then we at the San Diego Asian Film Festival provide marketing, operations, projection, and my own curatorial contributions. And then, oftentimes I'm asked, like, does the Taiwan Academy tell you what to show? Right? If part of the soft power is they get to dictate sort of like what the image of Taiwan. And this is not an arbitrary question. Like for instance, at San Diego State, I'm putting on this campus French Film Festival next year. And then their version of a Taiwan Academy, the Albertine Cinematheque, they literally give me a list of movies. They say, these are the ones you can select from. And for a campus little film festival, I don't really mind. But the TECO office, the Taiwan Academy, has never given me such a list. I have kind of full autonomy. But they're still a player here. And I think we all come into this understanding that we all love Taiwan, we all love Taiwanese cinema, we all have a passion for making sure the world knows about Taiwanese cinema. The problem is, are we all defining Taiwan the same way? Are we all defining Taiwanese cinema the same way? Is the Taiwan Economic Office and Cultural Office defining it the same way that me, a scholar, curator, is defining Taiwan? And what happens when there is conflict? And I'll say there isn't really conflict, but I'm going to walk us through some interesting points of when questions were asked. All right, so first off, maybe we could just start with some like really obvious movies. Like I'll call these like why wouldn't we play these movies kind of movies, right? On the far left, we have, this is Stray Dogs by Tsai Ming-liang. If you know, like Tsai Ming-liang is one of the great world auteurs. This film won an award at the Venice Film Festival. Like what international film festival wouldn't play this? And I love Tsai Ming-liang's films. And this one was great. And yeah, we play that. So that's one category, sort of like internationally traveling art cinema. In the middle here is a film called Kano, and this represents, I think, like the kind of prestige commercial film. This was a sort of anti-colonial baseball movie about indigenous people in Taiwan standing up to the colonizer and winning in baseball on the world stage. All the things that kind of make that like are literally allegorizing Taiwan on the world stage. And so us playing this film kind of makes sense. And it's a really terrific baseball movie if you haven't seen it. The third film is not usually what plays international film festivals, but to me it's kind of obvious. I don't know if you know this guy with the bow cut. He's this comedian named Zhuge Liang. He passed away a few years ago. But he was for many years like the biggest box office draw in Taiwan. And mostly to like a lot of older Taiwanese people, he's a specialist in Taiwan language comedy. His movies are mostly funny if you understand Taiwanese. And this whole film is like the conflict between a Taiwanese family and a Mandarin-speaking family, and they're going to get married, but they're putting together a wedding. You kind of figure it out. But it was a huge box office hit. It does not play film festivals internationally. But to us, it's like our audience will love this, and if like, our Taiwanese audiences love it, Taiwanese American audiences love it, but even everyone else is like interested in, I don't know, Korean comedies or Thai comedies, they'll figure it out. They'll figure out how to watch this. And so for us, this is also a no-brainer. All right, so let's move into some less obvious films. On the far left here, I have a film called Starry, Starry Night. This is directed by Tom Shu-Yu Lin. Earlier in the previous panel, we were talking about Hsinchu, right? and as sort of a hub for industry. Tom grew up in Hsinchu, and he actually went to the bilingual experimental high school that's kind of part of the science park. He grew up bilingual, bicultural. He went to school in the United States, studied film at CalArts, amongst other places. And this is him going back to Taiwan and working in like one of the most known sort of Taiwan IPs, if you could call it that, right? This is this is an adaptation of the children's books of Jimmy Liao, sort of like a mainstay of any home, like it's kind of like a everyone with kids would know him. So I picked this for the Taiwan, and the TICO office said, we can't put our logo on that. And I said, why not? I mean, this is Taiwan IP, right? This is like the most Taiwanese, like this is as Taiwan as it gets in some ways. I was like, is it because Tom you're not counting him as Taiwanese? It wasn't that. It was that when this movie came out in the United States, it got distributed by a company called China Lion that has funding from Hua Yi Brothers and Bonna Film Group. And these are like very major mainland film companies. So it wasn't that they didn't support the film. They're like, please show the film. We love the film, but we just can't put our logo on it because it would look like we are supporting a China company. So I just didn't put the logo on it. We all played it. Everyone loved it. So that was one conversation I had. The second one is a sort of the inverse of that. This is a film called The Waves Will Carry Us. It's a Malaysian director named Lau Kek Huat, who is based in Taiwan. The first scene is in Taiwan. The rest of the movie is in Malaysia. For all intents and purposes, this is a Malaysian film. And I really liked the film. And I asked the Taiwan Academy, will you fund this movie? And they said, yes. I said, why? This is a Malaysian movie. And they said, it's because this is a Taiwan production company. So it's almost like content didn't matter. It was that they were helping to invest in a Taiwan-based production company. So sort of the opposite, right? Starry Starry Night is Taiwan content, but here a Chinese company, a China company, and then here we have a Malaysian film that's a Taiwan company, and they told like that was the one that they opted to support. On the far right, Left-Handed Girl, mostly I just did this as a nod to Shi film. This actually was not controversial at all. They were like doing jumping jacks when they heard that I wanted to play this movie. They loved this movie. But this is sort of a category of films that I'm thinking about, like that are made by Taiwanese American filmmakers, like Taiwanese filmmakers based in the United States. You might include other filmmakers like Arvin Chen and others in this category. That I had wondered if they are interested in supporting filmmakers who are not necessarily like Taiwan-based. And in this case, they were very, very excited to support it. And it's also tied to the Taiwan Academy's role in the Oscar race as like the ultimate form of Taiwanese cinematic soft power, I guess. Okay. All right, the last category of films. These are the really out there ones. Well, not really out there, but like the ones that maybe were going to cause the most trouble. And all three of these examples, these are what I might consider like clearly films about the Taiwanese diaspora, or like from the perspective of the Taiwanese diaspora. Films that are like on the outskirts of what we might consider like Taiwanese, and yet for me as a curator, and me as a Taiwanese American curator, I'm especially interested in the ties between Taiwanese cinema and the diaspora. And how do we include Taiwanese diasporic films within this umbrella of Taiwanese cinema? But my question then is, does the Taiwan government, with the Taiwan embassy, with TICO as its face, what are they going to do about these films that I chose? The first is Love Boat Taiwan. We've talked about Love Boat here. As a reminder, this is since the I think 50s or 60s, the KMT government's way of trying to bring the Chinese diaspora to Taiwan to fall in love with Chinese culture and let Taiwan be known as sort of the center of authentic Chinese culture or something. But as was suggested in the last panel, that didn't exactly happen that way. And as depicted in this film, so this is directed by Valerie So, who teaches at San Francisco State. She was on Love Boat, and we all heard legends. I didn't go on Love Boat, but we all heard what happened on Love Boat. Right? Like, people did not necessarily go to learn Chinese culture. In fact, this documentary depicts them ditching their classes, making their teachers cry, a lot of drinking, and legends of people getting pregnant. But also like people who maybe didn't grow up around other Asian people or other Chinese people, suddenly going to a place where everyone is Chinese, and then realizing something about themselves that maybe had nothing to do with learning Chinese, but something about learning themselves as Chinese. So the TICO office told me before they even saw the movie, just so you know, we can't support this movie. Because like diplomatically, it's doing it the wrong way, right? It is talking about the failures of soft power and the hijacking of soft power by these pesky Taiwanese or Chinese Americans who are just here to have a good time. But I made the case that you're wrong. Nobody, like the people who on Love Boat emerge loving Taiwan so much, right? But here it's because Love Boat isn't depicting Taiwan as sort of like the hotbed of Chinese culture. Taiwan is an aphrodisiac. This is Taiwan as like you go there and then you just have like a bodily love for everything that is in the air. And I think that when they eventually watched the film, they relented. They said, okay, we'll support this. For some reason, all of you Chinese Americans love this movie. And there's something about it that is working, right? Maybe in their imagination of what diplomacy is. So we ended up showing that. They supported it. It was a big hit. The second film, Light of the Setting Sun, this is directed by a Taiwanese American named Vicky Du, who's based in Germany, about her family's experience, and the sort of tragedies in their family, and she's sort of juxtaposing her family tragedies with recent Taiwanese history. So with this was a case where the TICO office had no idea what this movie was. They said, well, is this even a Taiwanese movie, right? Germany, the US, what's going on here? And I said, don't worry, half of it is shot in Taiwan. And they're like, all right. And then they supported it. And then it won our film festival, and then they're really excited about that. The last case, they didn't even say anything about this. This is an Argentinian film called Moon Represents My Heart. And if you didn't figure that out yet, that's a reference to the Teresa Teng song, 月亮代表我的心. But as you can see, it's like translated into Spanish by a Taiwanese Argentinian filmmaker, also reflecting on his own family history, the murder of his father, the fact that his mom moved back to Taiwan. And so he's like kind of asking questions of his mother and finding out about his own identity through this encounter. And that one didn't raise any questions for some reason. But then the more I thought about it was just because, there isn't a whole lot of consistency in like how which films they decide to ask me questions about. And I realized it has a lot to do with the fact that the people who run TICO, who are the directors of TICO, they sort of cycle out every few years. There's new people there. And so there's new people who I'm getting to know, who get my phone number, who I build a relationship with. And maybe just in the beginning of our relationships, we don't really know like who is this Brian guy and why is he showing this Argentinian film. But by the end of their cycle, we've established a relationship. And then when the new person comes in, we reestablish. And so this is my way of thinking about this soft powers diplomacy. Like a lot of it is just getting to know each other. We have lunch with the TICO people, just so we know that we're all here for the same reasons. That you may not agree with the kinds of films we show, but we're all in it because we love Taiwanese cinema. Let's see. There's only been one case where they tried to get me to play a film that I didn't want to play, and when I didn't play it, they were like, "That's cool." They still gave us money anyways. So it's a really great relationship that I'm that I'm very grateful for. But that is sort of essential. We couldn't do any of this without them. Okay, that's it for me.
My name is Xuqing Zhou. I was born and raised in Taiwan, finished my college, and I went to New York for my master's degree in media studies at a new school. So that's how I started. I didn't really study film, anything film related. In Taiwan, I studied religious studies. And then, in New York, I studied media studies. So how did I become a filmmaker? That's when I ran into my creative partner, Sean Baker, in school in a editing class. So, with him, I watched a lot of films, and we both fell in love with film, this film movement from Denmark. It's called Dogma 95 film movement. So that, I don't know if you are familiar with that kind of film. It's pretty much, it looks like a documentary, but it's like a fiction and documentary, very authentic type of movie. So we fell in love with it, and then we said we want to make films just like that. So that's how we started, and we make Takeout in New York. And this film took us $3,000, and just two of us as a team. And we shot in a real takeout restaurant, and with non-actors, with all the local residents. So that's how we, started. That's how I started making film. And then with this film, the film traveled through different film festivals, and it was amazing how people really affected by the story and how that connect with the audience, resonate with audience. So with the success, we're so happy. We thought maybe we can start making other films. So we make other films. It's all focused on very small community. In all those films were made in the U.S. The first one is Starlet. It's about this community. It's a adult entertainment industry up in the valley north of LA. So that's a story about this young porn star. So that's her life in the industry. And the second one is Tangerine. It's a transgender community in LA. And then also it's inspired by pretty much the story we heard on the street, and we found these two local residents on the street, and we follow them basically using iPhone, and we wrote the story, pretty much their own story, and we turned it into a script. And then third one is the Florida Project, and this one is about also a small community in Florida that's very close to Disneyland. So a lot of people who basically they don't have homes, so they stay in the motels at the local, because they thought they want to go to Disney. They want to be able to work in Disney and make money, but ended up just living outskirts of Disneyland. So that's also a very small community story. And then the fourth one is Red Rocket, and it's also a small community. It's basically how the adult entertainment, all this business started. There's a lot of people from Florida, and they move to the valley in LA, and then started, the industry. And then this guy actually came back to his community in Florida, and in Texas. So that's how this is also, all the films, they are all focused on very human story in a small community, and then but how we became known as a independent filmmakers, because we went to all the film festival. The first we went to the South by Southwest, and then Sundance, and finally went to Cannes twice. So that's how I learned how we can kind of bring different movies to the global audience. So finally, I got the chance to make Left Handed Girl. And the interesting about Left Handed Girl is this is the very first idea I wanted to make when I first worked with Sean Baker. So we actually started writing a story in 2000, in early 2000. In 2001, I took him back to Taiwan. We're trying to turn this piece of memory from my high school, when my grandfather saw me use left hand use knife with my left hand. He corrected me. He told me left hand is devil's hand. And then to this day, I still don't know how this devil's hand came from. But I think that just, the adult, they make up those stories trying to scare little kids in Taiwan, so they wouldn't do certain things. So the idea of the story basically started from this piece of memory. So we focus on this three generational women working in night market, and we shot this film in 37 days in Taiwan and in the real night market. So most of the time we just I rented this noodle stand, and we didn't really control anything in night market. We pretty much just go in there, document everything live, whatever is happening, the real time, and all the people in night market, they are all real people. Like we just have a very small crew, around 6 people working at night market. I really want to capture the real vibe and the real night market vibe to the audience. Also, we're looking through this little girl's point of view. So, we went into the night market and we use iPhone as the camera, because I know if you want to work in the night market, you have to hide your crew and your camera, so people wouldn't stop you and try to interrupt. So that's how we finished this film in the night market, and we premiered at Cannes last year, and it was a big surprise for me, because I was just so surprised. This is a very specific Taiwanese story that really resonated with all the audience there. Not just the family dynamic. It's also the left-handed taboo. Surprisingly, is such a universal phenomenon. So a lot of audience came to me after the screening and told me how their parents or how their sibling, their grandparents all have the, very similar experience. They couldn't use their left hand. They had to use their right hand. So I think just through making Left-Handed Girl, I see how Taiwan can be, the Taiwanese story could become a phenomenon, and people really connected with it. Even they haven't been to Taiwan, they haven't really seen the night market in their own eyes, but they really affected by the story, the family dynamic, and I try really hard to put all the Taiwanese element in there. I don't know if you have seen it yet, but if you've seen it, you can hear the garbage truck when they come out. They play that classic music, and all the food in the night market, everything that happened on the street. That really just I try to pack all the Taiwanese element in there, and this is almost like a love letter from me to Taiwan, and I really want the audience can feel the energy and feel the love, and I want people to go to Taiwan to experience that themselves. And thank you.
My career started in Hollywood. I've been working in Hollywood for about 30 years, and I've never had the opportunity to work in Taiwan, which is crazy. So now I am writing a script along with Taika to shoot in Taiwan as well. And very much like what The Left-Handed Girl did, which is a love letter to Taiwan and my experience as a child in Taiwan. And sort of like what Brian also said, which is, I do believe soft power does work. And I don't know how many of you Taiwanese people have said, I'm from Taiwan. People say, Thailand, yeah, that's nice. There needs to be a distinction, and these movies help bring culture onto the stage and distinct Taiwan as a destination spot, as a cultural hub in itself that is very unique to the country, right? Thank you. So what I'm really known for is, right now I have a show on Netflix. It's called Blue Eye Samurai. We've won 4 Emmys, 6 Annies, Peabody Award nominated. And I'm the executive producer and director on Blue Eye Samurai. I also then directed another show on AMC called Interview with a Vampire, season 3. So as you can see, none of my stuff has anything to do with Taiwan yet, but what I'm hoping to bring back to Taiwan is these big, massive scales of these storytelling. Because I also came out of Marvel. I've done so many Marvel movies, not even funny. So that's what I have. So this is the trailer of our second season. So if you haven't seen first season yet, sorry.
A samurai is a demon's path, littered with death. Revenge does not hesitate. And I will have it.
I must kill him.
It is time for me to begin my quest.
Hi, I'm Michael Green.
Amber Noizumi, we're the co-creators of Blue Eye Samurai.
This is Jane Wu, executive producer on Blue Eye Samurai Season 2.
Mizu's journey remains the same. Revenge is her religion.
She believes that at least 2 of the men she's out to kill are going to be somewhere in this magical place called London. When we first see Mizu at the top of season 2, she's breaking in somewhere to kill someone. Something else you might notice in these images is that Mizu is holding her sword. That might tell you when this is happening. In season 2, we see the sword maker, we see Taigen, we see Ringo, we see Akemi.
There are also going to be maybe some people you thought died who maybe are still alive.
You're really going to give them that?
No?
Part of second season is refining a live action philosophy. You have to get stunt people that knows what they're doing.
When we started Blue Eye Samurai, we had no idea if anyone would be interested in this, if anyone would think it's fun, if we would even be allowed to make it. So we want to say thank you to the fans for showing up.
This is a story that needs to be told, and animation happens to be a very good medium to tell the story. I can't wait to share what we have in store for Blue Eye Samurai Season 2. I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
Sorry.
Legend is what history doesn't record, but still remembers.
Okay, and then we're going to show you the next one. This is Interview with a Vampire Season 3.
You've been alive and undead for 265 years. You witnessed the French Revolution, the electric light, the atomic bomb.
I am the vampire Lestat. It's my era. I'm a rock star now.
Thousands of fans love you.
I want millions. Billions.
My music. Why now?
We're doing a rewrite.
Everything dies. You die, I die.
I'm immortal.
No one seems to give a shit about you.
I've been a monster! This is my reckoning!
He's going to get us all killed.
You kill people.
I'm people. We're people.
And so was I. I am the vampire Lestat. I am a god.
So that represents my work and that's coming out end of this year. And as you can see, one has really nothing to do with the other, but that also shows you sort of my flexibility, as it would. And only because where I was trained in Hollywood was in storyboarding. So I did a lot of storyboarding and designed big, huge action pieces for Marvel, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, Terminator, you name it. It's like I've been there. But what was always missing was a story about people like me, like sitting, like those of us that are in the middle, was always so missing. And so when Blue Eye Samurai came out, I was really excited to work on it because it was a story about somebody that was in the middle and a culture she was stuck in the middle that didn't want her. And that's how I felt all the time growing up in the United States is I'm too Chinese here, but then I go back to Taiwan and I'm too American there, and like, where do I belong? So in a sense, hopefully the next phase of my career is talking about those films. My job now has really come into, as an executive producer, to hire the team, guide the team, do the budget, figure out how to make. So basically, I make the sausage. I get the script and I figure out how it's made. And also I direct it. So I feel like in Taiwan, it is strange to me that I have never had an opportunity to work with Taiwan, and I have like this Hollywood know-how, and I'm not bringing it to Taiwan. So, but what also excites me about working in Taiwan is that there's so many talented people there, and if I can just kind of, if I could just kind of blend somehow some of the Hollywood know-how and some of the Taiwanese ingenuity, we should be able to come up with something really amazing. And as you can see, the flexibility of what I'm able to do is the fact that I am bilingual. I still speak 2 dialects in the Chinese. I come from 2 cultures. I understand live action and I understand animation. So I'm always the person that is stuck in the middle. So instead of having that be a defect of some sort, I want to make it somehow a strength. So I've been able to figure out how to use that as a strength because I'm stuck in the middle. Great, I'm the best translator for all of it, right? Also, my focus is in martial arts. I train in Wushu. I don't anymore, I'm too old for it. But when I was younger, I trained in Wushu. So a lot of my friends are in the stunt business. And so when I choreograph these fight sets, it's because I've either done it myself or because I know what those moves look like. So it makes me an effective action choreography designer for big, huge action set pieces. I'm also very excited to go back to Taiwan to work in the film business because I can't tell you how often enough I am the only Asian person on set. And that does feel lonely. I want to see more people like me on set that have the same philosophy or that have the same ideas and some of the wishes and so forth. So yeah, I'm very honored to be here and also Brian, the movies that you sent, those are things that I grew up with, and hopefully one day I'll be included in there too. But it is very encouraging to see that Taiwan now is no longer a thing I have to explain, because I remember when I was younger, I say I'm from Taiwan. Oh, Thailand? No. Taiwan. Is it China? No, it's not China. Or then you just don't say it at all. But it's not the case anymore. There are more Taiwanese American out there that are working in the space of storytelling. So I'm very proud of being Taiwanese. Yeah, so that's my spiel. Thank you very much.
So I think the combination of all panelists is very interesting. So my very first question for all of you is, so for example, Brian, you're sharing the stories about what kind of stories the state or what you call the soft power wants to tell or want to share, and what kind of things and the details that they don't want to show. And that is actually very chaotic rather than consistent. Whereas Shi Qing is trying to reverse the common told stories in Taiwan into her own narrative, so that is actually travels across the globe. Jen really wants to tell our story, which you haven't really told us what that story is. So my very first question is, what kind of stories you think are less told about Taiwan, but you really think it should be explicitly addressed and explicitly tell more, either in your future work or either in your future promotions or curators, and anything that you want to share with the audiences?
Okay, since everyone's looking at me. Unlike Shi Qing, which she does really beautiful art films, obviously where I live is in the big, huge commercial boat. So what I would like to see are small, tiny stories that are singular in what that person experiences, but package it in a more global events, so to speak, and somewhere that's a little bit more commercial. So somebody in like Oklahoma can watch it and understand and not feel alienated by it. So in terms of a co-production, dual culture sort of stories, right? Because that's where I live. I live between Taiwan and United States. If it's too Americanized, then people in Taiwan can't enjoy it. And if it's too Taiwan, then people from Oklahoma will feel alienated from it. So what's kind of like the sweet spot that we tell it, but in a huge, in a huge kind of commercial set piece.
Well, I think the stories I always attracted to human story. That's more. I feel like if you can emotionally connect with the audience, I think that's how the audience will respond to your movie. So I think that very specific, stories, like the story we don't really hear all the time. I think I'm really interested in that kind of stories. Not something you already heard. But I just feel like the more specific, actually, you can connect more universal. Yeah.
I think I have the good fortune of watching a lot of films from Taiwan. So for me, it's like a lot is already being told. Like we see, the filmmakers in Taiwan are already covering so much of what we might think about what Taiwan is, and like people outside of Taiwan just don't even know that there are these pockets. Like for instance, we've shown a lot of work about Filipino or Vietnamese workers in Taiwan, like feature films about that story that really outside of Taiwan people aren't really talking about. So there's that element. There's like indigenous stories. But I'm really interested in what Jane you're saying about like the kind of a commercial package for these very human stories, because Taiwan is like very famous on the international stage for art cinema, for like the traditionally film festival film, and like usually associated with Hou Xiaoshan, Edward Yang, Tsai Ming-liang, and within Taiwan, I think audiences already know that that's a long time ago. I mean, like Edward Yang's passed away, Hou Xiaoshan's never going to make another movie. Tsai Ming-liang has said he's retired, even though he's still making stuff. So they understand that there's a whole new generation, but I think internationally there needs to be better attention being placed to new directors and new voices, including ones who are interested in what is a more kind of a global vernacular, like what Hollywood is so good at.
Yeah, so just a follow-up question. So Jen, you mentioned you are writing a story. Could you share a little bit? I was very curious about that one.
Because we're currently in writing right now, it's a little bit hard to tell you more details because I signed a contract with Taika. But a lot of it, just like what Sijing says, it has to come from your experience. And this comes from my experience of losing my Chinese name. And that deeply affected me. So it's a story about somebody losing their identity. How do you get it back? You know, so that's the core of what this character is going through. It's going to be packaged in action because that's also where my forte is. And anytime you do something that is a global kind of event, it's usually horror, action, sci-fi. And so, but I live in the action world, so it will be presented in the action space. That's all I can tell you. Sorry.
Yeah, so the next question I have is for the representations about Taiwan, because nowadays we have so many different platforms. We have Netflix, we have film, we have movie, we have YouTube, everything. And I wonder whether each of you can share a little bit, like how are you deliver the message across these different platforms where they actually have a very different representative ways of showing Taiwan or showing Taiwan and beyond either in your work or in the film you try to show.
Why is everybody looking at me all the time? Oh, okay, since I worked at Netflix, I think Netflix doesn't really tell us what we can and cannot show. Netflix and streamers as a business will always try to understand what the audience wants. So maybe this season, it's all about Westerns. Let's go buy more Western things. Or maybe this season, it's more about horror. Let's do more horror things. So it dependent on what the streamers feel like their audience is requesting and wanting. There are some outliers like Blue Eye Samurai that just kind of become a global hit because it's something that was that they took a chance on. By the way, Blue Eye Samurai is not for kids. Just because it's animated, do not show your kids. You've had fair warning. But I would say they are always thinking about if this material is something that their audience is keen to watching. So it's all story. It's all story based. This story. Is this story, does it reach across, to different cultures? Does the story resonate? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth talking a little bit more about Netflix, and I think your question is like, you're thinking about the place of streaming in changing the ecosystem. I mean, Netflix is the big disruptor in the industry, like the film industry, television industry. Because I feel like with Netflix, I don't know if this is your experience, but with Netflix, it doesn't have to play in Oklahoma, right? Like they'll find an audience somewhere, and it could be global. I teach an international cinema class, and on day one, I tell my students, films from all over the world are on Netflix. You just don't realize that. There are tons of Taiwanese films and television series on Netflix that are extremely popular. We just don't know. So Netflix's model is that in Taiwan, maybe it'll become really big, it'll become a cultural phenomenon. And if it happens to play in Oklahoma too, then that's great. And perhaps it does, and perhaps it'll organically find that audience. But like it's rethinking that traditional theatrical model of like it needs to play in 4 quadrants and in every region. And I think that's gonna, will that new model open up space for the kinds of stories you're talking about? I mean, it did for Lieutenant Girl. I mean, Lieutenant Girl is Netflix distributed it.
Yes.
Would anybody else have taken the chance on it? Maybe, but they did. And so,
But I also think she did such a great way. She did such a great cinematic language way that opened it up to the West. You know, because there, cinematically, sometimes the way Taiwanese stories are told is very Taiwanese centric. But I think the way you used your camera allowed it to kind of make Westerners understand the story that you were telling. But the subject was still Taiwanese, very Taiwanese, you know?
Yeah, but that's why my presentation. You probably didn't understand why did I bring out all those different movies that had nothing to do with Taiwan. But that's basically my experience. I know how to bring the movie to a global stage instead of just like local Taiwanese market or local or just U.S. market. But we brought all the movies to film festival. This is such a big, important stage for, especially for independent cinema.
Yeah, like even
has
the
to
way
go.
you guys
Yeah.
edit it and the timing and
Yeah.
the pacing of it feels like a Western movie, but the subject is Chinese, you know?
Yes. So that's so important to premiere, go to the film festival. And also, Netflix is great. I'm sorry, we have to keep on talking on Netflix, but I think that's just how the world becomes, everything is streaming, and you're not just going to reach the local audience, you're going to reach all the audience, throughout the world. And with this, in the beginning, Netflix actually gave us a report.
Oh.
And we did so well in Latin America, Mexico, like the Middle and South America countries. They really resonate with the film. We also did really good in Italy and Spain. So that's just really interesting how I feel like Netflix did such a great job. They really brought the movie to the places they don't have chance to see it. And I think that's the power of film festival. You really have to bring your film to a film festival. That's how you can start pretty much go to a different stage.
So you're talking about like Netflix as a global disseminator, but also film festivals as a continued important.
That's like a
global
very
disseminator too.
important launch, like where you want to launch, right? You have to start somewhere. So that's like where all the film, like really professional film goers, they love films. The critics or the market, they really go to a film festival to look for films. So I feel that is really important for independent film.
Yeah, so it seems like they have a conversation. So my next question is, do you guys have questions for each other? Do you want each other to answer? And then we can open up the floor later.
Well, I just invited her over for dinner, so I already asked her my question.
I'm curious, Jane, do you watch a lot of Taiwanese movies?
I watch a lot of C-dramas, sorry. But the older stuff, yeah, because I grew up in Taiwan.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that guy with the bull hair, yeah, I watched him all the time. You know what I used to watch a lot is 布袋戏.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, oh, can we do that somehow here?
Yeah.
That's something I'm interested in. And and representing Blue Eye Samurai, because my parents were raised during the Japanese occupation, so our families were all very Japanese. So I felt close to the culture enough to represent it and know the culture intimately. So, I also do watch a lot of Japanese dramas. I think the thing that makes me not watch a lot of Taiwanese drama is that I want the production value to be better. Because sometimes I watch it like, why'd you put the camera there? So, but yeah, I mean, I do see the older ones, because I
Yeah.
remember seeing the older ones. The newer ones, less of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my God, if I see another American production trying to do Sun Wukong, I will just.
Oh my God. I know. Like, who is that for, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't
That's what I'm saying. Every time I get a call, like, Monkey King, I'm like, no, no, no. That's not Taiwan.
All right, I think we are going to open up the floor to the audiences and then we can keep talking. Yeah. Question?
Can you tell us your name?
John.
Hi, John.
So, like, Netflix has done a great job of, I think, bringing Korean content to the globe and creating such strong soft power for Korea. I'm just wondering if that could be the same for Taiwan, or is there something special about Korea, like their ecosystem, that they're able to just create so much content that's resonant with the rest of the world? Is it just the scale and size of the domestic market that allows for Korea to do that?
Ooh, I can answer that.
Yep.
Ooh. What the Koreans did was they had a lot of money from the government to fund and support the media arts. 1,000% Taiwan can do that, and Taiwan is now starting to fund a lot of the government money into these mediums, right? So that's why TAICA was created. I forgot what the acronym was, but that's what it is. I'm not saying there's nothing special about South Korea or Korean culture itself. I'm also not saying there's something special about Taiwan. I'm saying every country can do this, but you just need the money and support. Everything is going to start from funding, money, and support, right? So I think Taiwan is on its way to doing that, and I think that's very exciting. That's why I'm writing the script and going home to try to make this movie.
In Korea, like, they played the long game. They've been doing this for decades.
Decades, like over 30 years.
Right, and I wouldn't count on Netflix to be the agent that is
That's right.
bringing Korea to the world. Like, what they're interested in is building IP around, like, Squid Games, so they can make theme parks or something, right? Like that's, they're not really invested in Korean media in the same way that the agencies and the Korean government are. They're interested in building film schools, film festivals, ecosystems, like financing schemes, film markets. Netflix isn't doing that. Netflix, what they're interested in is, if we can make some K-dramas and then build a subscriber base in Korea, we can continue to have subscribers in Korea. And if it goes to other places, even better. If Squid Games happens, hallelujah.
But
that's the government.
Exactly what happened, because during COVID, all the production stopped, right? So all the American production stopped, so there was no more content. So they had to go to Korea, they had to go to other countries to pick up more content. And one of them just happened to hit. And that just opened the gateway for other Korean contents. Not every single Korean content is good, but they do it enough so that the good ones do make it through, right? So it's just repetition.
Any other questions?
Back there? Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Annie. As a Taiwanese who born and raised in Taiwan and came to the US 2 years ago, I would love to see any kind of Taiwanese elements in media or industry like this. But I'm wondering how, as a Taiwanese working in the US or as a Taiwanese American, how do you test the global market or like the US market for which kind of element is more likely to be popular in the markets, or which kind of element is more like not acceptable to the population here? Like how do you test them, and how do you yeah.
I think I'm the worst person to answer that question.
What I love about you is you just do whatever you want.
I just do the story I want to know.
Right.
I basically make movie I want to see myself.
She's living my dream.
So that's how I find my story. I don't really care what audience like. I care a lot about what I like, and what I'm interested. And I really believe an authentic story that will connect with audience. Doesn't matter what subject matter it is. But I think it's something that's real, emotionally real, authentic, that the audience will like it.
And to follow up to what Sijing said, you do go to boardroom pitches of Netflix and all these other big studios that says, we want horror, we want this, that's what the audience is watching. if you do that, you will lose the heart of the film or the heart of the story that you want. Does it matter what the audience wants to see or what the market is wanting right now? If you're a storyteller, no, that doesn't matter. Because if you can't tell an authentic story and a story that can emotionally resonate, it's not going to matter. If you're an executive sitting on the other side and you're going, yeah, but my audience wants to see comedy, then you have to look for the filmmaker that can tell that authentic story in that genre. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not one or the other.
I'm curious, like in these pitch meetings, if you brought up the word Taiwan, like would they just automatically think the Monkey King or something, right? Like that, is it even legible to them as a way to turn it into a story?
No, I don't think so. So right now, Taiwan is a head-scratching, not Thailand, right? Yes, not Thailand. So I think it's still somewhat new, and that's what Korea so brilliantly did. They put their culture on the front page and they said, we are Korea. Like the fact that BTS just made a song that is Arirang, huge, right? What are we going to do with Taiwan? What's our Taiwanese? Meihua? But the fact that they have arrived in the global market with their soft power saying, we are Koreans, we're not Americans, but you have now accepted our culture. And so we don't have to be anybody else. That's what I wish for Taiwan. So in that case, we do have to slowly do one movie at a time, showcase what Taiwan is known for. Night market, food, fashion, people, language. Did I miss anything else? Yeah, not Monkey King. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gyuk Shin. Thanks for sharing your insights. When I talk to Korean people these days, they're saying that certainly Netflix was crucial for the rise of K-drama, but at the same time, Netflix is creating crisis for the Korean drama industry because they're so dominant. So what's your view on the role of Netflix in the future? Because I think festivals may be important. Like if you look at Demon Hunters, it's not really produced by Korean.
No, Korean American.
Right? Yeah, Korean American, but supported by Netflix and Sony. So it's not really Korean drama or Korean production. So I think people in Korea now, they really concerned that Korean drama industry will go through real crisis because of Netflix, its dominance. So what's your take on that?
I think anytime
I'm not an expert on Korean drama, by the way. So
no, I know.
That's what I hear, yeah.
I think anytime, my fear is there's a dominant of 3 streamers, Amazon, Netflix, and Disney+. That's it. And I think anytime you have less competitors like that, you will have a problem. And I think anytime you have oversaturation, you will have a problem. That's why there's no Marvel execs here, right? That's why Marvel, gotta scan the room. That's why Marvel's not doing well right now, because it was oversaturation, right? So it's consumerism that is the problem. It's the capitalism that is the problem to everybody just wants to consume and consume and consume. The fact that Netflix also built a binge culture, I don't think is quite healthy. I cannot make these shows fast enough because the shows just take that long. But, when you have Netflix going, can you do it faster? Can you do it faster? Can you do AI? Can you do this? Can you do this? It's going to take how long it's going to take. And just wait for it. What happened to waiting for something, So I do think in the future, there has to be, and I'm praying that there will be other formats for us to view content. And I think that's the only way to alleviate the hemorrhage that we are having with oversaturation. So that goes into a whole other thing about then oversaturation of content to begin with, and how do you be a connoisseur to what is good and what is bad, and I don't know. But It's complicated. The answer is it's complicated, and we just have to wait and see what's going to happen because there's a rise of AI and technology involved.
Yeah, I have heard a lot about the panic in Korea on the film side as well because of the Netflix presence. In Taiwan, something like that I think is happening too, maybe not as severe as in Korea. As from a film festival perspective, what's happening now is that a lot of films are, like, they get picked up by Netflix very quickly. They premiere at one festival and then they don't play festivals anymore. So like what Shuqing you're talking about, like the awareness through the film festivals as a place for people to discover internationally just can't happen anymore because Netflix doesn't care about film festivals. As soon as they do their one premiere, they want it to be on Netflix everywhere in the world. And so they just becomes buried underneath all the other like famous
algorithm,
right? Because of the algorithm. As opposed to film festivals who are trying to curate, like say, like, no, there are these voices in Taiwan, let's talk about them, let's talk about why they're meaningful. That's not happening anymore because it's just, they're not playing the festival circuit. I've also been hearing from filmmakers in Taiwan where Netflix is just investing so much in TV production in Taiwan that no one's making movies anymore, or it's like people who used to be really good at making movies are now just working in TV, and the film side is struggling a little bit as a result. But again, I think it's a lot worse in Korea, actually.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, up here.
So one thing that hasn't come up in this panel at all, or very little, is the role of Chinese cinema, so PRC mainland cinema, and Taiwan's kind of awkward positioning as something separate, but often using the same language, covering some of the same themes. And so I wondered if you could reflect a little bit on how do you see Taiwan in juxtaposition to mainland China in this space?
That is a very hairy.
Yeah.
Is that Tiny Girl in China?
No.
No, okay.
Because they wanted to get rid of one of my actors because he said something about, Taiwan. So the film, they couldn't buy the film because they saw this actor. So they said they want to AI him out. So I say, no, we cannot do that. So the film is not actually released to China. But there are plenty of pirate copies.
Okay.
In China. So they can watch it,
Okay.
but we're not making money.
I mean, I think like the reason that the TICO office of Taiwan Academy, they fund us partly is so we can put the name Taiwan in really big letters. I mean, I don't know if you know, but like a lot of film festivals are no longer allowed to call these films from Taiwan. I don't know if that's something you encountered.
Well, Cannes was okay.
Cannes was okay, but like the Venice Film
But
Festival,
Venice was
you
not.
can't call a film from Taiwan.
Why?
They call it China Taipei.
It's like the Olympics or something. Yeah. And so
Just some political.
so like working with TICO office, I mean, I would do it anyways. Like I call Taiwanese films from Taiwan. I call like Palestinian films from Palestine. Like this is just what we do. But I think maybe that's ultimately the goal, just to get the name out so that it's not Thailand. And that we could talk about like Taiwanese film creativity as a Taiwanese homegrown thing.
I think I like to address it in terms of culture. The mainland culture is very different than the Taiwan culture, right? Are they the same? That's all I'm going to say.
But most people don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But most people don't know.
Most people don't know, but after your film and my film, people will know. Right? It is very, very complicated because that's why, Russia's invading Ukraine and all that stuff. I want to keep out of the politics and just say, I want people to understand that Taiwan is different and unique than any other country. That's it.
Thanks for asking that question earlier and your response. I just have to say something as well. My name is Bobby, by the way. This Taiwan Chinese Taipei thing, it's kind of messy. But I do want to say that Taiwan did not exist after 1945. It's been there for 400 years. The port city of Keelung is celebrating its 400th anniversary this year. It was formerly the outpost for the Spanish Empire in the Asia Pacific, right? And the Dutch were there even earlier. And my point is, here we are 400 years later. Looking forward to the next 400 years, we're going to see continuing evolution changing the demographics. Some of you may not know that there's 1 million Southeast Asians living, working in Taiwan. 1 out of every 23 people. And they're happily living there, working, maybe establishing families there. I think the demographics will be changing. Eventually, it will become sort of a pan-Asian culture in Taiwan. If you look back 400 years ago, it was the Aborigines, the Dutch settlers, the Spaniards, and the Japanese in the last 100 years. Just a quick comment.
Yeah, I mean,
thank
my
you.
family my grandmother's Hokkien, right? So we're deep Taiwanese. So I'm deeply proud of my heritage, but I also know it's going to change, right? And as it changes, we need to at least let people know who we are and what our culture is. To me, the people are the culture. You can't tear it apart. So we have the power right now, those of us that work in film and media have the power right now to be able to bring that culture into more of the global market. So I do have an urgency to do this.
And if I make one quick comment, I think that culture is characterized by tolerance and by resilience.
I'm glad that you brought up the Southeast Asian component to Taiwanese culture and Taiwanese demography. I mentioned that there was the Malaysian film that they supported, a Malaysian filmmaker based in Taiwan. Tsai Ming-liang himself is from Malaysia. Now, Taiwan is his home. And it's something that we see a lot, like the Taiwanese funding agencies are doing a lot more outreach. And so there's like a Golden Horse Film Academy where they bring in film students from throughout Asia. Traditionally, it's throughout Asia, but now that mainland students that no longer come to this, they're really eyeing a lot of the Chinese diaspora within Southeast Asia and having Taiwan become a hub for that kind of movement as well. And I think the most famous example is the Burmese filmmaker Midi Z, who uses Taiwan as sort of a home base and plays films at Cannes as well.
Yeah. So I want to just kind of take opportunities to ask 2 more questions, and then maybe if there's any questions, we'll take the final questions, and then we'll wrap up. So I'm really curious in terms of the industry itself, for example, Jen, you've been trained in Hollywood for so many years, and during the presentation you mentioned if there are skills, you really want to bring skills back into Taiwan's film industry, right? What would that be? And if there could be Taiwan's Marvel, what would that be? Although I don't like Marvel, but
It's not a model. It's sort of a. The Hollywood pipeline, how you make movies, have been in existence for a very, very long time, longer than Taiwan's film industry. So Americans have a system of doing things that just makes it look a little bit more fuller and bigger, and they're able to. And it's hard for me to compare because I've actually never worked there. I'm only comparing to the movies that I've seen, but just think that the scale that could come with it. Taiwan is starting to get there on its own, but if you notice, there always will be some Hollywood person in there, like Weekend in Taipei and Lucy. Those are all Western production coming in to do those big, huge scales, right? But a lot of it is how we prep. It seems like in Taiwan, they don't prep as long as we do here. Is that true?
I think that's mainly funding, because they are much small budget, so you don't have that much time, that much money compared to Hollywood.
That's true, yeah. Because in America, we prep so long when we make sure everything is decided, done, practiced, rehearsed before we actually go shoot. So every new little nuance of the thing. And this is huge production, by the way. And you have to, because every time the cameras are rolling and you have about 120 people standing there, it's money. So you can't be going, let me see. You can't do that. Things have already been decided. That goes back to the amount of prep time you have. And I think mainly that's the biggest difference I see in the Taiwan filmmaking and American filmmaking.
I think the Taiwanese government has done, I mean, they're doing something called the Taipei Film Commission, been trying to court a lot of international filmmakers for precisely what you're kind of we're talking about. Like, can outside filmmakers come to Taiwan and then transfer their skills? But we haven't really seen that play out that way. Like famously, Ang Lee filmed Life of Pi. He built this whole studio in Taichung.
Right.
And my friends who make films in Taiwan were like, when he was there, we were all in Taichung. Like, we were all working on this film.
Yeah.
But it's not like Taiwan's been making a bunch of Life of Pi movies afterwards, right? Like that somehow did not translate into...
Because Taiwan's budget just isn't that big, right? Because the Taiwan island only has so many eyeballs, so that's as much money as you can raise to do a film. So of course with Ang Lee, he's doing that for a much bigger global audience. So that was a great opportunity for Taiwan to kind of learn how Americans do it.
My friends was actually learning in Ang Lee's team, and then she's keep telling us like how amazing, and we really want to get into her working place, but we cannot really kind of sneak in. But I think that's also a question for Shiqing, because you work with Sean Baker, right? And with Sean Baker's filming and his angle and the movie gets very interesting because it has so many local elements, but at the same time, the angle that get filmed is so unique in a way. So could you tell us a little bit more about collaborating with different people?
Well, we are complete opposite from your type of filmmaking, because we go like really independent. A lot of time we have like last film I worked on, his set was like 10 people all together. And the first film we did together was 2 people. And my own film in La Peniga, we have around 20 people crew. So we have like tiny crew, very tight budget. We're making very different type of movies. So when I first went back to Taiwan, I was really surprised, because in Taiwan they don't make film like what you thought before. Like I was thinking like Tsai Ming-liang, his crew probably like tiny because the film, that kind of film. So I was surprised when I went back to Taiwan. I couldn't find people who would just do the work. Everybody wants to have flight assistants, because they all went to China to make big budget film and came back to Taiwan. They think like there has to be a big crew. That's how we want to make films. So when I first went back, I couldn't find my crew because everybody was expecting.
Oh, okay, good. And so they're ready.
Yeah. So you can definitely find like 80 to 100 people crew. That's easy.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's how, like a normal Taiwanese film. That's how they, like I would say that middle budget. That's how they make, just like how you make in Hollywood. But like the way I make is like super tiny. I wanted to go back to that independent, Taiwanese independent filmmaking era. Small crew and really authentic into the community.
Yeah. So are there any final questions from audiences? Okay, if not, then I have final questions for 3 of you. Can 3 of you share your next step briefly?
Why are you guys all looking at me again? Okay, so aside from this Taiwanese film that I'm writing right now, which is due in a month, I'm stressed out. I'm also attached to another action movie that's going to shoot in London, so we're waiting word on the offers that are going out. Also, Blue Eye Samurai season 3 is coming. 3 is coming out, so that's pretty exciting, and a lot's going to happen at the end of the year. So it's nice to have a little breather right now.
Well, I'm starting writing my new film right now, so it's going to be a New York story, and it will be like very international. I want to show that real, like melting pot, in New York City. So that's my next project. Hopefully, you never know which one and which film will get made first, because finding money is really challenging.
I'm a boring academic, so I can't do anything like that. But I have a book contract. I'm working on like one of these Oxford handbooks of Chinese American cinema. I think the first ever book on that, and like 25 contributors. But so I was thinking about like, could I have pitched a Taiwanese American cinema book? I think it would just be you and a few other people and like Justin Lin, but none of his movies are about Taiwan. And maybe in a few years, maybe a couple of decades. Maybe your film will be in that book.
Yeah, we'll just wait a couple more decades. Because it's just going to be like 3 pages.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, our panelists. Their works are on Netflix, I believe, and if you are interested, feel free to watch it.